Hello, good afternoon. It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and today's date is Friday, October 24th, 2025. The time is 5:10 p.m., and I am in Miami, Florida. The topic of today's lecture is desired destination. And I would like to emphasize before I start this lecture that I am not an actor of any kind. I am not signed to any entertainment group, and I do not require or request assistance with any of my lectures or any of my videos, and that is in any capacity. All of my work is my own, and I ascertain that there are imposters out there, particularly in Miami-Dade County and possibly Shaker Heights, Ohio, that have deceptively attempted to insinuate in various places that I am somehow affiliated with them as individuals or any company they may own, and that is a lie. I'm a targeted individual. I've been a targeted individual probably since 1995. Definitely since 2001, and in heightened levels since 2015. It's been obvious to me over the past 10 years that what I'm experiencing is orchestrated, state-funded, and adversarial. And when I realized in 2015 that this mechanism, this protocol called clandestine gang stalking is exactly what I was experiencing when I went to Google all those years ago and started doing searches for things like, why would I be followed, tailed, surveilled, and intercepted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And also search terms like, why am I being followed in my car by large amounts of motorists multiple times a day, any time of day? Okay, when I first started noticing bizarre occurrences around me, these were the kinds of things I entered into the Google search bar. And after an hour or two of research, I came across a topic called gang stalking. And I came across various articles talking about it, and I came across community forums and so forth where people were talking about their own experiences with gang stalking. And these experiences were so similar in scope to what I was experiencing that I knew that this is what I was experiencing. And I knew that I was not going to be a targeted individual by any stretch of the imagination, and that I felt a sense of duty to document my experiences and make these experiences public in the interest of my sovereign citizenry, constitutional rights, and inalienable rights. Furthermore, I would like to address any third party that sees it fit to try and disrupt what I do on social media in particular with false reports against my person. There are a number of persons, particularly in Ohio and Florida, I suspect, that are going to social media companies and filing false complaints and reports against me with respect to the work that I do, saying that my work is all about them personally, and that I'm not talking about a program called gang stalking, I'm talking about them personally, and that my lectures and posts, videos, articles, etc., are riddled with threats against them. To them, all I can say is go find something better to do with your time. I'm busy. And I can promise you that any attempt you make to disrupt this program will fail. As the saying goes, a lie can travel around the world 10 times while the truth is just putting its shoes on. That's what I do. I am a truth seeker, and I am a messenger of truth. So, let's get into the discourse, desired destination. What is the desired destination of the gang stalking mechanism? There is a destination. There is a purpose for this program. The purpose is multi-layered and multifaceted, however, and its auspices are not always so clear. And the reason its auspices are not always so clear is because this program is covert in nature. Why is this program covert in nature? It's because the national security and intelligence apparatus of this country knew when they were implementing the program by stealth into not only the U.S. legal code, but into society, that it was a violation of constitutional rights. They wanted to see just how many people they could rob of their constitutional rights before anything was found out. Why would they do such a thing? Well, it's an ego boost to know that you can manipulate state resources, that you can manipulate federal resources, and that you can manipulate societal functions to disenfranchise people. There are individuals in this country that hate all the civil rights laws that we have. They hate all the constitutional laws that we have and wish that the Constitution could be rewritten to make it easier to disenfranchise people. There are people that don't like the Bill of Rights. They think the Bill of Rights should be rewritten so that it would be easier to disenfranchise people. There are people that believe that not every life, not every person, not every citizen that dwells in this country has equal value to society, and that there are different levels of value that different kinds of citizens have in society, and that the people who are more valuable to the progression of society should have more rights than the people who are less valuable to society. The orchestrators of clandestine gang stalking obviously devised this program with the intention of finding sophisticated ways of disenfranchising citizens with no recourse. A targeted individual cannot file a complaint with the city that they live in, the state that they live in, or with the federal government itself inquiring about their rights being robbed of them through a clandestine mobbing program. And why? It's because gang stalking has not been federally recognized. It has not been recognized by the states of this country. It has not been recognized in any capacity by any of the governments, federal, state, or local, anywhere in the country. So because gang stalking has not been federally recognized as a actual thing, that makes it impossible to report gang stalking because the federal government of this country has no knowledge or record of it. That's a part of the sinister, manipulative product called clandestine gang stalking. It was implemented by stealth without a name. There is no name for this protocol. It was named by the targeted people who experience it and the activists who think that this program is not only illegal but criminal. And I concur. Gang stalking is a criminal enterprise. It's an enterprise of street harassment. It's an enterprise of workplace mobbing. It's an enterprise of injustice. It's an enterprise of germ spreading. It's an enterprise of disenfranchisement, and it's unconstitutional. Okay, it's hostile and it's violent in various capacities, and that makes it atrocious. That makes it criminal. That makes it a human rights violation. So, because it has not been recognized by the United States of America at all as a real entity, it's impossible to prosecute anybody for it. Because you can't take somebody to court for a crime that is not recognized by the state. You cannot file police reports or criminal charges against someone for a crime that is not recognized by the state. You cannot sue an entity or a company or any type of establishment for infractions that are not recognized by the state. And that's the point. That's the product of this thing. It is a state-funded, state-sanctioned, state-monitored, and state-implemented surveillance, disruption, and confrontation mechanism in which people use a signaling protocol brought about by liaisons that are strategically planted throughout the United States to go after people. And not just go after people, but engineer outcomes. Okay? A hiring manager can be signaled by somebody who to hire, regardless of the qualifications of the applicant. Okay? Courtroom proceedings can be altered or engineered by a signaling mechanism as opposed to the evidence presented. Various outcomes of a legal nature can be determined by people who know signaling mechanisms as opposed to the rule of law. So in effect, it's not just society that can be manipulated through this covert clandestine signaling mechanism, but legal matters can also be altered and engineered by this same signaling mechanism. Where does it all lead? What is the desired destination of gang stalkers? Well, the answer to that is a multi-layered answer. When gang stalkers start using this signaling mechanism among themselves, not just to point out targets to harass, but to also engineer outcomes, not only in the workplace, not only in the legal sphere, but in people's personal lives as well. You can literally engineer the trajectory of society. There are a lot of stalkers that play matchmaker. For example, there are a lot of men and women alike whose husband or wife was signaled to them by a third party to start a conversation, to flirt, to get to know them better. Yes, if your stalkers, or if stalkers period, want to play matchmaker with a person, whether or not that person is a targeted individual or just somebody that's being casually monitored, stalkers can play matchmaker with you, okay? They can find out what kind of people you've had relationships with in the past. They can determine what kind of people you seem to gravitate towards. They can look at your internet activity or your browsing history to see what kind of news stories mean something to you, what kind of current events mean something to you, what kind of sports you like, what kind of sports teams you like, what your educational background is, what your work history is, what kind of family you come from, what part of the world you grew up in, and aggregate that information to go out and find somebody that knows signaling, that knows gang stalking, who might be single as well, and signal that stalker to you to become your new significant other. And this stalker is tailor-made for you by the national security apparatus in this country. It's an experimental game they're playing. And a lot of you met your significant others, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your husbands and wives through a signaling mechanism. How many of you listening had the perfect person just happen to approach you one day? And yes, you were single and they were single, and the chemistry was surreal. And the relationship progressed, and eventually you married that person and had children, probably thanking God for sending that person to you when they did, because it was just at the right time. A lot of you are married to your gang stalkers. People who were signaled to your exact location by a third party as someone they might be interested in. And your husband, your wife is a stalker, and you got little stalker babies running around your house. You would have never met this person if it weren't for the signaling mechanism that was used to signal them to your exact location. That is a part of the social engineering aspect of gang stalking. There's no telling how many thousands of couples or hundreds of thousands of couples in the United States that are artificial in their nature. They were derived relationships. One party or the other party was signaled to their potential mate by a third party. They took a signal from somebody else to your exact location as a potential partner for them. And they've kept that from you all these years. They've hidden that from you all these years. All these years you thought I just happened to meet the perfect person, when all the while your perfect person was signaled to you. They took a signal from a third party to you as a potential partner for them. And they never told you that. But I'm telling you that. That's part of the social engineering aspect of gang stalking. If you can engineer who gets what job, if you can engineer who keeps what job, if you can engineer who does well at what job, okay? If you can engineer who meets who and who marries who, if you can engineer legal outcomes, if you can engineer the outcome of sporting events, if you can engineer the outcome of political contests, okay? If you can engineer military actions, if you can engineer law enforcement actions, that gives you absolute power over the people of the United States. This clandestine mechanism called gang stalking, in which useful idiot stalkers who will do anything for social credit allow themselves to be guided by third parties using a covert signaling mechanism that includes physical gestures, hand movements, verbal commands, vehicular maneuvers, and other such cues which direct the stalkers to the target. This mechanism, as slimy and sleazy as it is, has permeated every crevice of the United States societal function. And because it's permeated every crevice of the United States societal function, that makes it as good as law. And that's what they ultimately want. They ultimately want the ability to make gang stalking the law. You have to maneuver about using these signals. You have to show obeisance, or rather pay obeisance, to people who are in authority in this program. And if a person knows signals, signs, verbal commands, and so forth that are capable of disrupting you, well, that makes them your superior in the world of gang stalking, and you have to do what they say and do it with a smile on your face. Otherwise, days later, you might get disrupted in a hostile fashion by other gang stalkers. It's a domino effect. There's a chain of causation in gang stalking, ladies and gentlemen. One event leads to another, that event leads to another, that event leads to another, and that event leads to another. A gang stalker could approach you with germ disease and bacterial communication through the air as a way of trying to make you timid or compliant. You could stand up, look at that stalker in the face, and tell him to go somewhere. There are likely other stalkers in the vicinity who hear that. They could report to other stalkers that you're being hostile to one of theirs. They could find out who you are using your GPS data location. They could give your description to other stalkers, and they could tell them what general direction you're traveling in so they could find out more about you. Maybe later that night, maybe later the next night, or maybe 10 days later, you will encounter another stalker who is there to make retribution for the stalker that you verbally insulted. That stalker may descend upon you with various other disruptive or hostile annoyance or pestering mechanisms that will ultimately see you disgruntled or feeling disenfranchised or angry at the experience you had. And that's the point. The point is to break your spirit. That is why gang stalkers that's why they descend upon you in such large numbers. It's to make you feel outnumbered. It's to make you feel like you have no control over the trajectory of your life. It's to make you feel all of these things. And the shameful part about this is those who implemented gang stalking had to do it by stealth. They had to sneak this program through Congress. Because they knew that if the typical American who has some semblance of what civil rights and liberties are, a person who understands constitutional rights and freedoms, a person who is of the mindset that they are a sovereign United States citizen with inalienable rights, those persons would get up and protest the living hell out of that program until it is killed on the Senate floor. Okay? But since it was legalized by stealth, there's no way to defeat gang stalking on the Senate floor. Now you have to get it repealed because it was passed alongside various national security mechanisms. It was passed on the coattail of national security legislation. Why? Because the orchestrators of gang stalking, particularly those in the national security apparatus, the intelligence apparatus, and the military-industrial complex, knew that if it was passed on the coattails of national security mechanisms, that Congress would be more likely to pass it. Because what could be more necessary than national security? And of course we trust the drafters of national security bills. Surely nobody would implement or try and pass this program off as something that the American people didn't need, something that would enrich certain sectors of the information technology and weapons technology sector at the expense of the taxpayer, essentially giving the national security apparatus and the intelligence apparatus of this country broad and undefined powers to wage covert wars against select U.S. citizens for extrajudicial reasons. Surely nothing like that could ever manifest here in the United States. But I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, it has. And it has for over a decade. And this thing has probably been in the works since the 1960s. Now, ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, what you're going to see is you're going to see a counter movement to the gang stalking movement. Gang stalkers feel like they have finally, after 60 years of preparation, claimed this country as their own. They have finally found a way to silently and without drawbacks control not only governmental matters, not only federal, state, and local courtrooms, not only investigative protocols, not only the education system, which is riddled with gang stalking, okay, but they can engineer society, period. They found a way to use this signaling mechanism, this disruption mechanism, this surveillance mechanism, this confrontation mechanism, this attack mechanism, okay, this state-sanctioned thuggery mechanism to hinder people's personal lives so that they will likely be less successful in their occupations and in their studies. If you disrupt somebody's personal life, that is going to have a direct effect on their ability to work and produce. If you disrupt somebody's personal life, it's going to make it difficult for them to have interpersonal relationships. My relationship with my significant other, Lori, is in the process of people trying to disrupt that relationship and harm the two of us in the process. Why? Because they can. And because it's a part of both of our gang stalking protocols. This program is disgusting. I think the people that practice it are deleterious to human civilization. And it separates humanity into two factions, two warring factions. Okay? It separates humanity into the kinds of people who want to go through life letting others guide their path, particularly through this signaling mechanism and this general instruction mechanism. And the other side are people who are not plugged in to clandestine gang stalking at all, and who are likely the victims of this program. Now, ultimately, what you're going to see in the United States is you're going to see a continuation. You're going to see a continuation of this program. Okay, it's been exposed, but no doubt are the orchestrators of it, the liaisons, the undercover operatives that use it to pester people while they're doing their jobs, and the stalkers themselves. You're going to see them try and reassure each other that this is for the best and that they're not doing anything wrong. Well, that's perfectly fine. I find the orchestrators and the handlers of this program to be utterly and completely disgusting for using it as a way to control people who otherwise would never be controlled, who would be able to live their own lives as they see fit. Okay, they're not, these stalkers, okay, these liaisons, these undercovers, they're not using this program to stop child trafficking. Okay, they're not using it to stop mass murders. They're not using it to stop violent bank robberies. They're not using it to stop child predators from coming too close to children. They're not using it to stop drug cartels. They're not using it to stop illegal immigration. They're not using this program to stop abuses of power. They're not using this program to stop any crime that could be considered federal. All right, and that includes economic and white-collar crimes, crimes that are committed in the highest reaches of corporate America. It's not being used to stop that either. It's not being used to do anything but pester and disrupt the lives of United States citizens who have made the wrong enemy. That's it. That makes the program wasteful. That makes the program atrocious. That makes the program disgusting. And it is. It's annoying. And on top of that, targeted individuals can see what's happening. That's how you know the orchestrators of this program are total weasels. It's because they want the targeted person to see what's happening and know that regardless of what you see happening, nothing's going to happen. To us, We can run this program against you forever if we choose. We can do as we please, and we're going to prove it to you by letting you see what's happening to you without you being able to do anything. That'll get you in line quick. And when you make a beef about it online, when you talk about it on social media, when you talk about it on your websites, when you talk about it on videos, like Emmanuel Isaiah Smith has done, we're going to find a way to get you canceled off the air, or we're going to find a way to sabotage your project, or we're going to find a way to convince people that you're psychotic, that it's all in your head. We have a whole industry in place to deny the facts. We have a whole industry in place that's going to trip up any attempt to expose us. And we're not only going to disrupt your attempts to expose us, but we're going to send a horde of disgusting, hostile, violent, surly, and problematic stalkers your way while we do it, to further destabilize you personally and professionally. Why? Because the National Security Protocol, in conjunction with the U.S. federal government, sees it fit. What is the desired destination of gang stalking, ladies and gentlemen? It is utter and total control over society. It is control over every man, woman, and child, and it is a way of guiding society into a path that has been forged for it by the national security apparatus in this country. That is what the desired destination is. Social engineering, control of society, the ability to disrupt the lives of people who have either offended one of you stalkers or people that you simply just don't like for this reason or that. They don't have to be disruptive to society. You can make it look like they're disruptive to society. You can make it look as if they need to be surveilled constantly, whether or not they really do. You all are not out there using this signaling mechanism to thwart violent crimes. You're not using it to thwart college campus rapes. You're not using it to thwart rapes that happen in the military. You're not using it to thwart rapes and muggings that happen on the street. You're not using it to curb the murder rate in this country. You're not using it to advance educational interests in this country. You're not using it to advance higher educational interests in this country. You're not using it to advance good living. You're not using it to advance clean living. You're not using it to advance the arts or the humanities or philosophy or the study of government. You're using this program to discriminate, disenfranchise, and attack U.S. citizens with impunity because you have the state working with you on it. That's what you're doing. Okay? You got the state working with you. You're wards of the state, and you use the power of the state to perpetually pester people in hostile, violent, and disgusting manners. Furthermore, the way you do business is it's unprofessional. All right? The ones of you that are wards of the state, the ones of you that have legal justification to surveil people, you all are using the same signaling mechanisms, the same pestering mechanisms, and the same disgusting search and attack protocols that typical gang stalkers use. So that makes you complicit in gang stalking, regardless of if you work for the state or not. If you work for the state, I suspect that you should have a separate mechanism for discovering events of interest to the U.S. federal establishment in this country. For you to send, and I'm talking to the federal departments of justice and defense, who I believe have sent undercovers to my location to surveil me, not necessarily for my well-being or personal safety. I experienced just as much danger with you all watching as I did before you started watching. So that means you're not here to protect me at all. Okay? My significant other has encountered danger too since you all have shown up. That means that you're not looking out for her interest either. You're just sending spy after spy after spy after spy after spy to use basically data collection, disruption, and harassment tactics against her and I. How this plays into your overall agenda is beyond me. And the reason I say that is because your mission statement has to have some sort of an end goal. Okay? You're wards of the state. You're taxpayer funded watchers and surveillors. How is it that you're being paid by the state to watch people and harass them at the same time? What kind of garbage is that? And a lot of you have these tails, okay, these shadows that follow you around and commit similar acts of thuggery against the people you're watching as you do. What on earth is that? How is this possible in a democracy? How is it possible in a constitutional republic? I'll tell you how it's possible. The Congress of the United States has given broad and undefined powers to its national security apparatus to do these kinds of things, regardless of the legal and constitutional ramifications, and regardless of the damage that it could do to a targeted individual. That's how it happens. You're simply ignoring the inalienable rights of your citizens. And you know what? You appear to enjoy it too. You like the power this program gives you over society, over people. So you're going to continue to exercise it against the recommendation of persons like myself who call it unconstitutional. I prefer you repeal this program and never implement it again. But until that day comes, you all are going to continue to commit this atrocity against people, and you're going to continue to let other U.S. citizens join in on the atrocity, regardless of the effect that it has on said citizen, and regardless of the damage that it's capable of doing to the citizen physically, occupationally, psychologically, or other. But I'm telling you something, you guys picked with the wrong one. I know my rights. I know how to communicate. I'm of a sound body and mind, and I have no intention of letting you operate this program on me with impunity. Okay? And you know what else? You ought to be ashamed of yourself, because you call yourself professionals, and you're not professional. Okay? You're deleterious, and the stalkers you use aren't patriots. Okay? They're hostile, violent, thuggish, germ-spreading wards of the state who do nothing but continually pester people. Okay? I've lived in Ohio, Tennessee, and Florida. I've experienced gang stalking in all 3 states across the demographic spectrum. Okay, across the socioeconomic spectrum, across the socio-political spectrum. You are dealing with a political dissident who has become fed up with the trampling of his constitutional and inalienable rights. And these stalkers you send are belligerent. They have no oversight. They're not sworn to uphold the Constitution. They're not accountable for their actions. And when you signal them to somebody, it's anything goes. You send a stalker to a target to watch them, or to, in my case, you all are sending stalkers to get right in my face daily. All the stalkers, undercovers, and liaisons that are coming my way using this signaling mechanism, they all feel the need to come within 3 to 6 feet of me at all times. Get the hell away. If all you guys are doing is watching me, surveilling me, observing me, do it from a distance. I mean, are the people y'all got working for you that blind to where they have to be right next to me in order to watch me? Go somewhere else. Do it from 30 to 50, 100 feet away. You got these clowns running up on me constantly, hovering over me. Huh? Do I look like I want them around? You all are packing out buses that you know I'm going to be on, so there'll be a ton of stalkers on the bus. That way the undercover operatives that are on the bus feel safe, because the undercover knows that he's dealing with a political dissident. Well, if I'm going to follow Smith, I want at least 100 people around. And not just any 100 people, I want 100 of our people. Okay, stalkers, people who know signaling. Those are the people I want. Just in case Smith gets rowdy, I'll have lots of witnesses and lots of people who can intervene. That's the attitude of the stalkers, liaisons, and undercovers here. Okay, I'm done trying to build rapport with them. I tried already. I tried being nice. I tried being civil. I've tried all these things with these people that I know to be signal-taking stalkers. But it's difficult to be nice or friendly to a person you know has taken a signal to your location as it is. Much more difficult is it when that person gets around you, they act in a belligerent, annoying, or pestering fashion. That makes me think the whole purpose of this thing is to disrupt a person's life. Okay? You are collecting data and information or doing some other covert mission at the expense of the target. It does not have to be that way. You don't have to do your job at the expense of the target. You can do your job in such a way that is professional and respectful of the target's civil, constitutional, and inalienable rights. If you are not doing your job in such a way that is conducive to constitutional rights and freedoms, then that makes you an atrocious pesterer and a belligerent agitator. And that goes for you people too here in Miami-Dade County, the ones of you that keep nitpicking through my project, looking for threats to you personally. You're looking at every negative adjective that I attach to gang stalkers, and you're running your little punk butts around making reports about me, talking about you on my social media page. Don't read my social media page. I'm not talking to people like you anyhow. The kind of person that would do that is not the kind of person that I think about when I factor in what I believe is my ideal audience. You all don't have to tune in at all. You who are constantly nitpicking through my project looking for controversies that may or may not be about you personally, I've been talking about gang stalking for 10 years. Simply put, if you use a signaling mechanism to pester people, I'm probably talking about you more so than another person who's not. So you can take it however you want to take it. I just hope that the social media companies and the various other tech companies that I utilize for my project are vigilant and are mindful that in a program like what I have, there are going to be people who try to disrupt it. And I hope that the false reports that a lot of the social media companies are getting about the things that I say and who I might or might not be talking about personally, I hope that the social media companies and the various other technological firms and so forth are vigilant to that fact. There are people that just simply want to try and create a buzz around their own name, and they create false narratives about other people to do that. So what is the desired destination of gang stalking, ladies and gentlemen? It is to engineer an outcome in the lives of people for the amusement of some, but it's also meant to control society, the trajectory of society, what people think. One of the things that gang stalking is obviously aiming for is what's called singularity. Okay? The orchestrators of this thing would like to bring this society to a point where everyone thinks the same. Everyone speaks the same. Everyone thinks that right and wrong. Everyone thinks the same about what's right and what's wrong. Everyone thinks the same about God and the afterlife. Everyone thinks the same about American history and what's good for America. You see, it's called singularity. Okay? They want everybody in this country to think alike, to speak alike, to have similar ideas of what success is and what success is not. They want you to have a sameness, a monolithic idea of who has a right to even live on this earth and who doesn't. What's the ideal lifestyle? What's the ideal occupational trajectory? What's the ideal family? What's the ideal religion? What's the ideal country that every other country should strive to be like? What is the ideal set of circumstances that are supposed to lead to true purpose and happiness? Who's in control of these things? Who should be in control of these things? Who ought to see a life that is dynamic, that is pure, that is free of distractions, that is free of disruptions? And who shouldn't? Who should have a life that is full of conflicts and obstacles? Okay? You got a bunch of knuckleheaded morons in the federal establishment of this country that have put together a knuckleheaded and moronic program to where other knuckleheaded morons in the form of stalkers, liaisons, and undercovers get to constantly surveil and pester people physically and psychologically, verbally and otherwise, with the power of the state. And it is designed to make it look as if it is just. It is designed to make it look like the targeted individual deserves this. It is designed to make it look like it benefits society in some way for you as a sovereign United States citizen to be constantly pestered in such a way. It is supposed to look like it's the hand of God doing this to the target. It's designed to make it look like it's karma or karmic retribution that has befallen the target. It's designed to make it look as if the targeted individual is the cause of his or her own problems. and that this is simply society basically saying, this is what we think of you, this is what our God thinks of you, this is what future generations will think of you. It's designed to make it look like the target is a threat to others or himself, and that this is a way of containing him so that no one gets hurt. It's designed to make it look as if the target has committed some act of deviance or exhibited some other deviant behavior or is otherwise worthy of this hostile, pestering, violent, annoying, and disruptive mechanism called clandestine gang stalking. Okay? This program was legalized by stealth. Always remember that, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes right down to it, this program was not debated on the Senate floor. It was not debated in Capitol Hill. It was not debated in any presidential debate. It was not debated in any gubernatorial debate. It was not debated at all. Neither was the will of the United States people involved in the decision to unleash this animal upon society. It unleashes a bunch of hostile, surly, belligerent, opportunistic, hateful, thuggish, violent, and criminally inclined persons upon a target using a covert signaling mechanism. And the reason I say criminally inclined is because a lot of these people fantasize about being able to commit crimes against people. Even if the crime is something like harassment or intimidation or menacing, okay, or assault or something like that. It doesn't have to be murder, okay? It can be a hit and run accident that you get away from successfully. A lot of people in this country would like to be able to commit those kinds of crimes against other people as a way of stress relief, or simply as a way of making themselves feel above the law, or as an ego boost to that particular person. There are people who would like to be able to commit those kinds of crimes against other people to show other segments of the population who's boss in this country and who's not. There are people that would like to be able to commit those kinds of crimes against other people so as to further their own interests elsewhere. Okay? That is a criminal. And a lot of the stalkers, the gang stalkers, the one that look like crystal clear, crystal clean, phenomenal American citizens who use this signaling protocol, in their heart, they're larcenists. In their heart, they're murderous. In their heart, they're thugs. I don't care what their background is. I don't care what their education is. I don't care what their occupation is. I don't care what demographic they are. I don't care what kind of family they come from. I don't care what kind of religion they're a part of. If you participate in a covert signaling mechanism so you can cause harm to other people without being caught, you're a thug. Plain and simple. And a lot of the people that follow me around are thugs, and I treat them like thugs. I get up and walk away from them. You got people that like using this program to commit acts of racial hostility against other people. There are some people who won't take a signal to anyone unless they're of a certain race. Maybe you hate whites, maybe you hate Hispanics, maybe you hate Asians, maybe you hate black people, maybe you hate Arabs, maybe you hate Pacific Islanders, maybe you hate Hawaiians, maybe you hate Aboriginal people. You could arrange it to where you could pester a person from any other race using a signaling mechanism and get away with it clean. Because your stalkers will signal you to somebody of a race that you don't like at a time where there are very few police around, if any, and that there are other stalkers around to help you get away.